What's up, guys? This is Tasteless and GTR here for another day of the SSL. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well, Tasteless. Here at the SSL tonight, we have our losers bracket semi-final where we will see two players come out here eliminated. We've got two matches here, two best of fives. We've got our first best of five is a Terran versus Terran, aLive against ByuN, and following that we'll have a Protoss versus Protoss mirror, Classic against Patience.
And I'm loving both of these matchups. Terran versus Terran, I've always loved all the way to the early Brood War days. Even the pre-Brood War days, TVT was pretty cool. But now, I think it's been better than ever with Legacy of the Void. And PvP, Legacy of the Void has made a huge improvement in Starcraft 2. A lot more dynamic games. There's a lot more comeback capabilities. It really does in the late game come down to perfect control. Yeah,
there's no doubt that Terran versus Terran and Protoss versus Protoss have significantly improved in terms of watch viewability coming to Legacy of the Void. I mean, Terran versus Terran, we have the tanky vacs, which pretty much changed the whole dynamic of the matchup.
Oh yeah.
And in Protoss versus Protoss, we've got disruptors, which can change, like with the positioning your tanky vacs, it can change the way the game goes for you.
Well, it's interesting because, like, especially let's take like the medevac tank combination, you can push so much more quickly now. It's insane. I mean, one thing that was, I think, a fundamental quality of a Terran push when you had tanks early on in a TVT was that once you had it in siege mode, that was kind of all you got. If you're going to relocate, there's the risk of unsieging, tanks you can't run away as quickly. Not anymore, GTR. Now you can reposition them. You can start to strike in different areas. If your opponent loses a few of his own tanks, bam, you could push so quickly, leapfrogging those tanks around, it could really hurt them.
What's so exciting about Terran vs. Terran Legacy Void is that it promotes whoever is aggressive with the tank vacs, because in Wings of Liberty and Hearted Swarm, generally, in most games, it would be whoever has the better macro, whoever has more tanks than your opponent, that wins the game. But in Legacy of the Void, we've been seeing that using the map to your advantage, noting the positioning of your opponent, it's much more important than what it was beforehand.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. So, guys, thank you so much for coming down here today. Of course, you're always welcome to come down to our studio. Entry is free. We're down here in the Nexon Arena in the Gangnam area, not far from Gangnam Station and especially close to Shinonhyun Station. You can come down here, still hear English commentary, and participate in a lot of cool prize events, all that jazz. Okay, we're getting deeper and deeper into this tournament. We're finally in the phase now in the losers bracket where we start to eliminate players.
Yeah, we're in the final 8 players. After today, we're going to have 6 players left in the tournament.
Right.
And this is the first time in the losers bracket where we're going to see best of 5s. And best of 5s is, in my opinion, the perfect number of games in a series to find out who's the best player in the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. So taking a closer look at our first player, aLive.
It's good to be alive.
Especially at this day and age, man, with esports on TV. aLive is a phenomenal player. He was very good in the early days of Wings of Liberty, fell off a bit in Heart of the Swarm, and he's back stronger than ever. And the same story is true for his opponent here, ByuN.
Yeah, ByuN, he's not tied to any Pro League commitments. He's only got the SSL to worry about, so I bet you I saw him when we were coming into the studio, actually just sitting in his booth, just practicing, and he definitely does not want to come out here a loser in the losers bracket.
So here's our map lineup. Again, in a best of 5, there's been a lot of time for these guys to prepare, a lot of time for them to make alterations in their style of play and analyze their opponents further as the games go on.
Yeah, considering it is a best of 5 now, the whole ladder map pool is available for the players.
That's right.
But we see here, these players don't really want to play on Central Protocol. They don't really want to play on... Central Protocol has been the common map that most players opt to not play on. So we're going to go to an interview right now with the players.
Let's see what their thoughts are before this match.
안녕하세요.
테란 동독전에 2승 1패를 기록하고 있어요.
네.
최근 프로리그에서 패배를 했는데 그게 좀 오늘 경기에 영향을 끼치지는 않을까요?
그거 져가지고 많이 힘들어했는데 많이 쉬고 와서 연습도 열심히 했고요. 좋은 경기 보여드리겠습니다.
그럼 한희석 선수가 생각하기에 오늘 경기 예상 스코어는?
아무래도 3대1 힘들 것 같고요. 3대1 아니면 3대2 예상하고 있습니다.
그 이유가 어떻게 되세요?
그냥 연습 때 좀 연습이 좀 그렇게 잘 풀리지 않았고요. 그냥 변현 선수가 좀 긴장을 많이 하시는 거 아니면은 아마 접전이 나오지 않을까 생각하고 있습니다.
그럼 마지막으로 변현우 선수에게 한마디 해주세요.
네, 지금 스타리그 테란 네, 2명밖에 안 남았는데 이렇게 동족전 하게 돼서 안타깝고요. 누가 이기든 간에 최종 결승까지 갔으면 좋겠고 오늘 재밌는 경기 했으면 좋겠습니다. 감사합니다.
안녕하세요, 변현우 선수.
안녕하세요.
동호회에서 한 동족전 전 적이 없어요.
네.
세계 종족 중 동족전을 몇 번째로 했어요?
제가 생각하기로는 첫 번째인 것 같아요.
이번 스타리그 처음이자 마지막 동족전인데 본인이 꼭
네.
이겨야 하는 이유가 있나요?
아니 동족전이 아니라도 경기는 무조건 이겨야 되잖아요. 이기는데 이유는 필요 없다고 생각해요.
승자 인터뷰 반응이 되게 뜨거워요. 오늘
네.
이기면 인터뷰 때 하고 싶은 말 있어요?
아니요, 생각 안 해왔는데 일단 이기면 저절로 다 생각이 나거든요. 근데 오늘 질 것 같아요.
왜 이렇게 자신이 없으세요?
원래 자신이 없어요. 저는 항상 그래요.
그러면 오늘 한희석 선수한테
저 봐주셨으면 좋겠어요, 제발.
좀 마지막으로 하고.
오늘 꼭 이기도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다.
Sick.
Some interesting words there from aLive, actually. He did mention that him and ByuN are the last two Terrans here in the tournament. So what aLive said was that despite the fact that they are playing in the losers bracket, he wishes that one of them will actually make it to the finals, which is fair enough. You got to represent the Terran race here.
That's right. Who do you think actually wins this, and what score? 'Cause that's a really tough one.
It's a really tough one because we haven't really seen much of ByuN. We don't really know
that's
what his
true.
form is right now, especially in Terran versus Terran, because the matches that we've seen so far from him have been Terran versus Zerg, Terran versus Protoss. We haven't seen him in the mirror matchup at all. aLive, on the other hand, he has been strong, but in the Terrans versus Terrans we've seen from him, he's beating Cure in Pro League, but he also lost to TY. But to be honest, there's no real shame losing to a player like TY.
No. Well, I mean, everybody's losing to TY right now, right? So if I had to guess, I would say 3-2 or 3-1 aLive.
I'm going to go for 3-2 to ByuN because I just feel
Really?
that ByuN has just prepared more well for this series than aLive.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Frankly, I'm happy with either of these two players actually moving on. I think they're both really good. A lot of potential. It's really cool to see the older players coming back. A lot of times it's just older players fall off, newer players come, then those guys become the old players, they fall off, and it's like the circle of life, Simba. But in this case, it's really interesting to see guys that were strong in the early days of Wings suddenly back looking better than ever.
Yeah, I feel like in this series, ByuN's the more feel-good story, the Cinderella story of this season.
Yeah.
So it would be better if ByuN would win, but it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, who wins. These two players are really good players right now, Legacy to Void.
I'm rooting for aLive here, although ByuN, I'm a super fan of this guy as well. I think anything can happen. I just feel like aLive looks so scary, looks so tough. The way the other pro gamers talk about him, they certainly speak of him in this air of respect. So let's see what happens. Again, game number 1 will be on Dark Towers. Our game is now loading up, so tell your friends to join us here with Tasteless and GTR in another day of the SSL. All right. In the upper right, in the red, our first Terran player, aLive.
Hearty applause there for aLive.
And in the bottom left, his opponent, also a Terran player, old school, just like aLive. He is ByuN. taking a deep breath there. Got to get in the zone.
A lot of people out here for this day today here at SSL. A lot of fans of ByuN actually. I guess what I mentioned before, him being the Cinderella story of this SSL, has brought a lot of fans to come out here for today's matches. But going up to the game here, Terran versus Terran on Dust Towers, you've got that expansion at the back of your main, and it's really easy to take third. Same with your fourth base as well. But the most interesting thing about this matchup on Dust Towers is once you take the fourth base, where you're going to go. It's really hard to take your fifth base because it's in that higher ground area. And also with this map, positioning is key to winning on Dust Towers.
Yeah, I'd say generally after 3 bases, every other expand is really punishable. Really punishable, especially with the medevac tank combination. I mean, it's very difficult to deal with. Let's see if they actually scout all the way or if they use the Reaper for defensive purposes instead.
So both players, as expected, are going for the command center at the back of the base. And it looks like ByuN is posturing to get a factory here. And looks like the same is for aLive. So pretty much mirror builds from both players so far.
We see that Reaper coming out now. aLive is going to be scouting with that. ByuN is going to just use the Reaper to stay back and try to deflect the Reaper from aLive, opting to not go for scouting to this point in time. It's not as common, but not necessarily wrong or bad to play either way. If you're wondering why the depots are lowered, he needs to make sure the Marine and the Reaper can rotate from side to side, depending on where the Reaper runs up into.
As we see here, Reaper of aLive trying to get up to the base of ByuN, but it doesn't really get through. And we see another barracks being built here for aLive, so we might see some early aggression here from aLive using that additional barracks for more Marines.
And we're going to the starport tech. This is all very standard for Terran versus Terran. We see the orbitals are synced up. Beyond that, I mean, it's pretty much mirror builds. We'll see post-starport tech if they decide to take this into different directions. Now, there is a fork in the road, and we'll have to see which road is traveled there as far as builds go for both of these sides. There's the option to get Banshees, the options to get Liberators, Medevacs for Marine drops, tank drops, Hellion drops, and the whole lot. And also we've seen tank drops used pretty effectively previously.
As you mentioned, there is forks in the road when we play this matchup, and we already saw that first fork in the road here, ByuN going for that early Hellion rather than investing that 75 minerals onto another production facility. As we see here, aLive actually going for a Medivac. So
looks like a medevac drop,
yeah,
I'd say.
Medivac drop, but also ByuN's getting a Medivac as well. So we'll see how this turns out for both players.
And it seems also as though aLive is going to be going for more harass here with his Medevac tank. Reaper now coming up and going to be going up here into the upper right. And meanwhile, we have the third command center on the way for ByuN as well.
Yeah, getting that third command center, also getting a Cyclone and a Viking. That is pretty much a good combination to have for any harassment options that aLive decides to do. As you said before, using that Medivac maybe to do some harassment, or maybe if there's a Banshee that comes out for aLive, that Cyclone does a lot of damage to that Banshee. As we see here, actually, the first tank is out for aLive with that Medivac, so it looks like he wants to do some harassment right here.
Yeah, he wants to do a push over in the front and lock him out of that potential third base. Meanwhile, we have ByuN coming up here for a drop back here with these SCVs. Hellions and Marines now being unloaded. We don't see anything quite yet to defend, just a few Marines. Will he have enough to actually hold this off?
Oh, I love this Hellion here from ByuN. He's actually doing a lot of damage to those Marines. We'll see how much damage these Marines of ByuN can do to the work line of aLive, but that Viking has to chase away that Medivac, and here's the counterattack here from aLive onto the main base of ByuN.
All right, a nice drop over here, picking the tank up and dropping it again to keep it out of Cyclone targeting range. The Viking is present here to try to drive back. Oh, hold up, he's going to try to drive back that Medevac. We'll be able to get rid of it in time, though.
Oh, this tank's actually doing a lot of damage here to the army of ByuN, but ByuN, he's got enough units out because he's got the defender's advantage, and that tank actually gets out, which is
How did that actually get
nice.
away? He should be able to lay on the Vikings and just kill it off. Okay, there we go. I can't believe that tank didn't die, though, before being able to get away. Anyways, we've got Stim coming down here for aLive. A bit of an exchange there on the front. I'd say more critical units lost there for ByuN over at the front of his base as this game moves forward right now. But at the same time, I guess there was a Medevac and tank lost there for aLive. So let's see what happens. One thing we definitely can note, though, is that there's going to be functionality at the third base sooner, or at least the option of that for ByuN, whereas aLive is just now building his third command center.
Yeah, unfortunately for aLive, he couldn't do that enough critical damage that would let him back into the game, especially considering that ByuN has taken that, well, hasn't taken, but he's built that third command center with that orbital And as you said before, having that faster third base allows for ByuN to quickly power his economy up, get more production buildings out, get more units out, and maybe hit a timing that will catch aLive off guard.
3 more barracks coming down now with double medevacs being pumped here from the starport. So far, so good here for aLive. Now, aLive has tended to lean towards more aggressive builds. He actually played a little bit like this. Another player who was like this was Pult in the early days of Wings of Liberty. And then he seems to have stayed that route here in TBT, in Legacy of the Void. I think aggression definitely rewarded more in Legacy. And maybe he's more comfortable with this expansion being a little bit later and the supplies being a little bit ahead here for ByuN.
Sure, as long as aLive gets damage done with this harassment style that he's opting to do in this game, he's going to be in a comfortable position. But at the moment, we've seen that aLive's attacks have not done too much damage so far. And I really like this Marine, actually, scouting any outcoming armies of ByuN.
It's really good, right? But hold on a second. A drop. No, he already realizes he's scared those units away, so he's going to look for other opportunities elsewhere. Instead, decides to drop back down here. Siege tanks have been pulled back, no longer pushing, instead defending over this expansion.
Nice, so place tanks there. Gonna shell away those Marines, and aLive has to pop out there as the third base of aLive is finally up and running. He's got those 2 gases up. ByuN, meanwhile, doesn't even have the gases up on his third base, so this harassment, this timing window of aLive just move around with those medivacs is going to give him time to get that third base up and get his economy on even footing with ByuN.
I really like what aLive did there to just keep the push back from ByuN. ByuN's opportunity to try to come out was forced away when that drop happened. The tanks have to come back, and now he's in a defensive position. And I think aLive, so far, he's been in pretty good control this game. What I'm worried about, though, is when they have to go on head-to-head against each other. The armies are really splashing against each other. It seems as though ByuN will, no matter what, have more than aLive. I mean, ByuN's actually abnormally ahead, despite the small difference in expanding timing for the third base. He's, like, way ahead in macro.
Yeah, ByuN hit that timing window where he added his production facilities earlier than aLive, and as a result of that, he's able to build more Marines, more tanks than his opponent. And if ByuN's smart enough, he'll be able to see the fact he's just did a scan right there, and he sees that he has more units than his opponent, and he's moving out.
And quite a considerable amount, nearly 40 supply more up here as he begins to press forward. Remember, nobody's taken the third base yet. In fact, I don't believe we've even had a third command center made here. So as he comes forward, he's going to stem. We have the drops coming down here, and all aLive is trying to do, this is an old strategy dating back to the early Starcraft days, is trying to get the tanks to drop on the ground, or even the older Starcraft days, trying to get them to enter into siege mode so you can buy time and slow down that push. It looks like he's in a good position to go right here into the main.
Oh, looks like ByuN is not opting to actually drop on the main and shell those production facilities. He's just going to put these Marines up on the upper ground, but oh, that's some poor movement there from ByuN with his Marines. We'll see how many tanks he puts up onto that upper ground.
Right now, aLive doing a good job relocating his tanks, but he is doing a good job. ByuN is taking out this starport, and it will go down.
Oh, that's huge. That means there's no medevacs, no Vikings coming out from the starport. And ByuN has a really nice position here so far in this game.
Okay, he's stemming forward. He's driven out the tanks. Gonna get the tanks on the low ground. Another Marine's coming in here to try to defend.
Yeah, I think aLive just lost too much there. Really nice move there from ByuN, using those tanks and the medevacs to bait those Marines ahead, and then from that, using those tanks at the lower ground to shell those Marines. It's a really hard position here from aLive to come back from, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, he's also getting this this barracks with the tech lab hit over here. If he can actually just get up here and possibly get into the main where he can hit the gas, this would be even worse right now. We see SCV's been pulled in a big surround that's coming down here from the bottom. Does he have enough to take this all out? He picks up, moving the tanks out. A narrow escape, because keeping the tanks alive and the medevacs alive is the most important part in TBT.
For sure, keeping those tanks alive, keeping that medevac count as higher than your opponent is so pivotal in Terran versus Terran. And I think in this situation, ByuN has done enough damage without losing too much that he's ahead right now. And he's still got those medevacs there at the north dead space. So now we see here aLive, though, posturing for a counterattack.
Yeah, this will skewer the Terran. If Terran tries to move out, he can actually try dropping over here into the main. We'll see if that's the case he has. Otherwise, he could send this south here to reinforce his army that's trying to control the center. The counterattack drop is coming in now, unloading where all these SCVs are, just barely trying to stay out of range of these turrets here.
Yeah, if he gets those engineering bays, that'll be a huge win for ByuN, but it looks like he's not really paying attention to this drop right now. But, oh, nice counter attack here, denying that fourth base of aLive. And it looks like ByuN might be going for kill here.
Big plays here, cutting off these tanks from the rest of his ground armies. Doing a great job stimming. The tanks still remain. He has to take out that last tank. And he might be able to come in here and now even doing more damage to this barracks with the reactor over there.
I really love those positionings of those tanks there in that little nook there. It's a perfect spot where he can just easily shell at those production buildings of aLive. So we see here another counterattack here from aLive. It's going to take out that base at the 9 o'clock position. And the supply count is quite significant though. It's around 60 supply ahead for ByuN. So we'll see how this push goes for him.
Yeah, right now though, he's doing a great job of keeping it blocked inside of his base. aLive doing a good amount with a very small amount here. He's actually kept him off that third base. What I'm worried about right now is this big supply differential, because I think eventually he could smother this base over here at the third base for aLive, and that would lock aLive out of a win for this game.
And picks up those tanks, but he gets that medic back into tank, but the response from ByuN is that he's still got those 2 tanks siege there at that look I was talking about earlier, and they showed a lot of damage onto those Marines. And if aLive keeps losing units recklessly like that, there's no way he's going to get back into this game.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And it looks like now, with this 1 tank on the high ground, he can actually cut off access to the ramp, making this even harder right now. He's at the point where he can hit tanks as they're spawning out. aLive desperately moving forward now with the Marines, trying to pick up a good micro back there by ByuN. And ByuN with the reinforcements here, I think this game is moments away from ending.
Yeah, there's just too many units coming out from ByuN in this situation. And he's nearly maxed out here on these 3 bases. And he's just going to walk up here, clean up the rest of the army, and I'm not really sure if aLive can stay in this.
Yeah, he's stimming, he's coming forward, he's taking out all these barracks and tanks, and I think we're going to be seeing GG any second now. There it is. ByuN wins game number 1.
Nice game there from ByuN. Managed to deflect that early harassment from aLive with that tank and medivac, and once he defended that, took his third base earlier than his opponent, I think he just pushed his advantage on and take that game.
Well, he was really able to micro out an incredible amount back there. I mean, or macro, excuse me, out an incredible amount. Even though the third base for aLive was just a little bit later, I mean, ByuN really, I think it was like a 40 supply lead consistently through that entire game. The harass was good. I think the idea of what aLive was trying to do was nice, but when it comes to micro, if you're as good as your opponent with the tank medevac control, the guy with more tanks and Marines, his medevacs, is just always going to win. So aLive smashed pretty hard back there. Let's see how game number 2 goes.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the game, there was a window of timing where ByuN got more production facilities than aLive and reacted barracks build Marines fast. And because that aLive was trying to take his third base behind a harassment, that wasn't really successful.